Operations and Supply Chain Strategy, Chapter 2 lecture. So in the overview section, there's a statement that says operations, strategies, and decisions should fulfill the needs of the business and add competitive advantage to the firm. So the needs of the business, obviously we're talking about being profitable, maybe being a good corporate citizen, a good citizen in the community. It could mean that you are filling a specific market niche that you really feel strongly about. So those are some of the needs of the business. A competitive advantage is how is it that you do things better than others, really simply. It could be from a cost point of view, it could be from a service point of view, it could even be from a location point of view. So whatever your competitive advantage is. So you move along and you say value can be created only by operations and supply chains that are more productive than competitors in relation to the company's chosen markets. So more productive, that just means you're able to do things better, perhaps more efficiently than your competitors, hopefully in certain key areas. Like you may be able to deliver product to the market much faster. You might be able to provide design services that make you better than your competitors. You design stuff that's more easily made or services more easily provided. So moving on down, it says you have the resources to start a company. What would it be? And you don't necessarily think about this at perhaps many of your points in your lives, if that makes any sense. But a lot of times people do want to go into their own business at some point, and they just don't necessarily think about it till much later on in the career, and that may or may not be a good thing. So financial resources, what would it be if you wanted to start your company? Well, you think about, well, what is it that you're good at? What is it that you care a lot about? And obviously that would be a great starting place. Second is, what would be your competitive advantage? Do not say price, typically, or do not say you're going to provide customer service, because chances are there's other people out there that are going to be able to provide that. Sometimes it just ends up being a product that nobody else has, or it's possible to have a service that makes you much more customer friendly than perhaps other ones. You really focus on nurturing a culture of being supportive to customers where other people may not. Always responding to phone calls in a very prompt manner, always being honest, always trying to give a fair price, always be willing to pay your employees a little bit higher than other people in the market because your retention may be better. There's a whole bunch of things that could result in competitive advantages. Of course, you have McDonald's, obviously. So at McDonald's, they track cost, quality, and service performance of each restaurant. So they compare one McDonald's restaurant to all the other McDonald's restaurants, which is internal measures. They also compare them with competitors. Well, internally is not too bad. You develop some metrics and you compare the restaurants that way. But when you're looking at competitors, it's a little bit more difficult. For example, cost. If you're McDonald's and you want to know how much Burger King buys their hamburger buns for or their patties from, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to call them up and ask them how much you pay for this stuff. They may not be willing to share that information. Chances are they don't. Well, you say, well, let's contact the supplier. And the supplier, if the supplier is also your supplier, it could be that for some reason Burger King gets their buns for 5 cents cheaper a bun than you buy from that same supplier. So that supplier is not going to want to tell you how much they're selling it to Burger King, because then all of a sudden you would demand that lower price perhaps. So how do you do it in terms of cost? Sometimes you end up hiring people that are from Burger King, that are like in the corporate offices, and you basically get the information because they have the information and they share it with you because now you're their employee. However, there's other ways of doing it, especially on a more broad scale, is you can look at your profitability compared to a Burger King franchise's profitability with respect to a bunch of factors. And so you say, well, our profitability is very similar to theirs, and our volume of sales is very similar to theirs. So therefore, we are probably very good in terms of cost, or we need to improve on cost. So next one, quality. Obviously, you can, go in and buy their hamburgers and compare them on such things as freshness of the bun and how some measure of the hamburger patty and the squishiness of the pickles or whatever, and you can have a metric that measures that, and you can compare on a regular basis how your quality compares to their quality. Of course, you can also ask the customer, and that's one aspect, but you don't necessarily want to rely on the customer specifically because they may not be as discerning as a more objective measurement, such as squishiness of pickles, for example. All right, service. Service is a little bit trickier, and the Secret Shopper is probably an excellent example of how to do the service performance comparisons, because you have someone come in and they have a rubric that they're using to evaluate the service, and so they go in, and the people working there don't know that they are a evaluator or an assessor, and so they're going to behave in a certain way. So that you go into these stores and you collect that information. You also go into the Burger Kings and the Wendy's and you compare and collect similar information, and then you have a measure of how well you do as a McDonald's to other McDonald's as well as to places like Burger King. When we talk about strategies and oftentimes start at the very top, very broad, and then they trickle down and they get more refined and more specific. So a corporate strategy may be, we want to be the top producer of radios in the world. And one of the businesses could be satellite radio. Another business could be just regular stereo systems or whatever. And so there might be several business strategies. So let's just say one of them is the satellite radio. So all right, here's that business. Of course, there's also the stereo radio, the home stereo. There's also could be a car stereo business under this corporation. So anyway, so you just identify one of the businesses and they say, oh yeah, we are the satellite radio people. So what happens is they say, well, this is how we're going to support this corporate strategy more specifically with regard to satellite radios. Remember, corporate, we're going to be the best radio suppliers in the business. The business one for satellite radio is going to be, we're going to be the best satellite radio provider. And then you come down to operations strategies and essentially say, well, what makes us the best? Well, we're going to have the best quality components. We're going to be able to receive satellite signals for our radio much farther away than our competitors, whatever. And so the descriptors become very, very specific, and then you compare yourself. But they're all aligned with the business strategy and eventually the corporate strategy. And of course, here's the various types of strategies I talked about. Now, 4 common operation strategies are listed here. And one of the ones I just want to emphasize is one could be flexibility, ability to rapidly change operations. And I hit on this over and over again across various chapters. The reason I do that is people think, well, yes, we're going to measure ourselves on our costs, we're going to measure ourselves on quality, how well we deliver stuff. But being flexible really means that we are able to adapt to our customer demands, and that could definitely be a competitive advantage. That if they want to change their order from 50 blue pens to 25 blue pens, we can do that. It's not a problem. It's not something that we're going to resist because we are really good at changing from red pens to blue pens and vice versa. We're going to look at Medtronic's operation leader. They say the best path to long-term growth in shareholder value. Our stockholders are happy because we're growing and growing and growing long-term. Comes from a well-articulated mission rather than simply maximizing shareholder value. Well, that's a really complex statement, but it really comes down to is stockholders are going to do better if you focus on this is where we are going as a company. It makes sense. It's the best way for us to go, and we're going to stick to this mission because it's going to end up giving you a lot more benefit in terms of stock prices and dividends than just focusing on giving you a quarterly dividend, even though we're sabotaging our business and basically draining our revenues by paying dividends when we really should be trying to grow the company and help the stock prices to increase. All right, we're going to stop there for this segment.